and welcome to the Fall Poncho Crochet Along, hosted by B.Hooked Crochet and sponsored by Shape-Just-Wool. This crochet along consists of 4 different options for you to choose from, 2 neck options and 2 finishing options, and there will be 5 video tutorials explaining the process from beginning to end. To participate in this crochet along, you will need to visit www.bhookedcrochet.com/poncho. That's going to give you the list of the supplies as well as the written instructions. Video number 1 of the Fall Poncho Crochet Along is going to show you how to create the turtleneck option, or neck option 1. Let's go ahead and get started. So what we want to do is begin with a slip knot. You want to make sure you leave yourself a long enough tail. And we want to begin by chaining 68. Okay, once you have 68 chains on your hook, then we just want to straighten our chain, make sure it's all laying in one direction. Okay, so we're making sure that it's not twisted. And now we're going to join with the slip stitch to the very first chain that we made. So just insert your hook into the chain. You can grab 1 loop or 2 loops, doesn't really matter. And we're going to slip stitch. So grab your working yarn and pull that through both loops that are on your hook. Okay, and so now we're ready to begin round 1. So we definitely want to make sure that we have a total of 68 chains. We have to have an even number in order for our ribbed stitch pattern to turn out properly. To begin round 1, we want to start off by chaining 3, and this chain of 3 is going to count as 1 double crochet. Now we just simply need to work 1 double crochet into every chain, and I typically like to turn my chain over, and I like to work in the back bump of the chain. But if you're uncomfortable with this, you can work into the center of the chain and catch that top loop if you'd like. When you work in the back bump of the chain, you end up getting a cleaner braided edge on the finish, and so that's why I like to work in here. And you also get a little bit more stretch or give. So it does cost a little bit more time to work your stitches into these back bumps. However, in my opinion, the time is worth it, because like I said, you're going to get extra stretch, and with this neck option being a turtleneck option, you definitely want it to be able to stretch and fit comfortably over your head. And we also want it to look nice too, so we'll have that nice pretty braided edge on the other side. So that's completely up to you. You can do whatever you're comfortable with. Once you've made it all the way around your chain, we're going to finish off this round by joining with the slip stitch to our third chain. So remember we said that chain 3 counts as a stitch, and so we just want to find the third chain. So we've got the first, second, and the third right here. We just want to insert our hook into that chain and slip stitch this round together. Okay, so before moving on to round 2, I would definitely recommend that you take a quick second and make sure you have a total of 68 stitches. And we are counting this chain 3 as a stitch. Okay, so we have to have an even number for our stitch pattern to work out properly. And you also might want to slide this over your head and make sure that it's going to fit. Now, it's going to fit around your neck, but we need it to be wide enough to fit comfortably over your head. But know that it's going to be a very stretchy stitch when we get done. So if it's pretty close, then just know that it will stretch a little bit as you work up this ribbing stitch. For round 2, we want to start off by chaining 2. And now we're going to be working in post stitches. So front post double crochet and back post double crochet. So we want to find our chain 3 here. Okay, and we don't want to work our first stitch there, but that's going to help us locate the first stitch. So we'll just yarn over and then slide your hook behind that post. So just in one side and out the other, and then work your double crochet as normal. Okay, and so that is how you do the front post double crochet. Now we're going to work the next stitch a back post double crochet, and it's exactly the same, it's just in the reverse motion. So we're going to yarn over again. We're going to come in from the back of the work, and then we'll find that next post, which is right here, and we're just going to wrap up that post. So I've got just the post over top of my hook on the back there, and then we'll just work the double crochet as normal. And these 2 stitches, if you're not used to them, they're a little bit fiddly at first, especially the back post double crochet. It takes a little bit of practice to get that motion down, but by the time you get finished with this collar, you'll probably be a pro at it. So the next stitch right here, we want to do a front post double crochet. And the next stitch is a back post double crochet. So this post here, oops, and you will find that it might fall off your hook like that every now and again. Okay, front post again. And back post. Okay, so that's basically the stitch repeat for this round. We're just going to alternate front post and back post double crochets, and we're going to do that until we reach the other side of our circle there. Okay, so once you have finished round 2, your work should look something like this. And when we go back to the join, remember we said that this chaining of 3 counted as a stitch. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we end up with a back post double crochet around that chain 3. Okay, and at this point we can simply join with the slip stitch to our first post. So just right into that stitch. So we're skipping that chain 2 simply because that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch. So we're just skipping over that, and now we're ready to begin round 3. So round 3 is the same as round 2, and actually all of the rounds from this point on for the collar are going to be the same. So I'm going to demonstrate very quickly just this front post and back post double crochet again, and then we'll just talk about how to finish off our collars. So again, we want to start by chaining 2. And we have a front post double crochet here, so we know we want to front post double crochet into that same post. And the more rounds you get, the easier it is to work these stitches. So really that second row is pretty much the hardest. Now we sort of have a foundation, and it's much easier to work into these posts. Also, the longer our collar gets, the more you'll be able to see the ribbed pattern. So it really doesn't look like much right now, but the ribbing texture will be kind of long ways, so you can sort of see that taking shape right now. Okay, when you finish up round 2, don't forget to do your last back post double crochet in that last stitch. So we're always going to begin on a front post and end on a back post. And then again, we're just going to join with a slip stitch to that first post. So that's just our first front post double crochet. And that's going to finish this round off completely. So as I mentioned before, all of the rounds are exactly the same for this section of the pattern. So for the collar, or at least for the turtleneck collar, we're going to just continue making rounds of front post and back post double crochet, just alternating like we have been. And we want to do that until our collar measures about 4.5 inches long. Okay, so all of these rounds are exactly the same. So what I need for you to do at this point is just to finish up your collar. So finish making enough rounds so that it measures about 4.5 inches long. And then you can come back to this video and we'll start working on the next section of our poncho. Okay, so what I have done off camera is finished crocheting my turtleneck, and so my piece measures about 4.5 inches right now, and we have one more round to finish up the neck for this option. So what we want to do, once our collar is the proper length, we just want to chain 1, and we're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch. So our chain 1 is going to count as a stitch here. So we don't want to make our first stitch right here. Okay, so that's actually where our chain 1 is coming from. So we want to make a single crochet into that next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in all of the remaining stitches. And it may be a little bit tricky for you to see, at least from this angle, where to actually make your stitches. But if you're having trouble, it always helps to flip your work so that you can see the top of it. And then just know that we're making 1 single crochet into every single V. So each V corresponds with a stitch. Okay, once you have made it all the way around, your work should look something like this. And I mentioned before that our chain 1 is going to count as a stitch. And so when you're looking at it from this angle, it's really easy to kind of forget about that chain because it doesn't really look like a stitch the way it's faced. But we do want to make a slip stitch into that chain, and that's going to make sure we are counting it as a stitch. So I'm just catching 1 loop, and I'm going to slip stitch, and that has ensured that that chain 1 is still counting as a stitch. And one other thing I'll mention, before moving on to the first round of the body of the poncho, you want to double check and make sure we have 68 stitches. Okay, that number is very important when moving on to the body of our poncho. So double check that number, and we're ready to move on to the next round. To continue on with the first round of the body of the poncho, so that's how you're going to see it labeled in the written pattern. We're now working on the body of the poncho, and this is round 1. We're going to make 5 chains to begin this round. And what this chain represents is 1 double crochet and 2 chains. Now we're going to make 2 double crochets into the same space where our chain 5 is coming from. What we're doing here is we are starting on the first point, or the first corner of the poncho. Now we're going to be working in the back loop only. So this loop that you see right here, that is the back loop of those stitches. And we want to make 1 double crochet into each of the next 16 stitches. And working in that back loop only. Once you have 16 double crochets, then we're ready to start working on the next point. So we're going to locate our next stitch, and we're still working in the back loop only. We want to make 2 double crochets into that same stitch. and chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into the same stitch. And that's how we're going to do all of the points. And that is our pattern repeat for round 1. We just want to continue by making 1 double crochet into each of the next 16 stitches, and then in the 17th stitch we're going to make another point just like we did here by doing 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So go ahead and work on that. Once you have your next 16 stitches, then we're ready to start working on the next corner. We'll go through that briefly one more time. You just want to make 2 double crochets into that next stitch. And then chain 2 to create the point. And then 2 more double crochets into the same stitch. Now at this point you're ready to proceed by making 1 double crochet into each of the next 16 stitches. You'll do that and then you'll create your last point. And so we're going to meet back up at the end here when we're ready to join off this round. So go ahead and finish up round 1 working with the written instructions for guidance. We'll meet back up to finish it off. Now once you're ready to finish off this round, there's 2 ways to do so. And I'm going to demonstrate both ways. There's the correct way and there's the way that looks a little bit better. So when you've counted all of your double crochet, your 16th will end up right here. So it looks like you have an extra stitch, or it looks like you're missing a stitch here. And that's just because of how we started this round with the chain 5, and so this chain 5 is associated with this stitch as well. So we know that we need to have 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and 2 double crochets for each corner or each point of the poncho. And so what we have here is a chain 3 acting as a double crochet, a chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So we're missing a double crochet for this point. And the correct way would be to add the double crochet to the same place that the other stitches are coming from. But there is a way that makes it look a little bit better. If we add our double crochet to this extra stitch here, the one that looks like we're skipping a stitch, it looks a lot better. So if we add the double crochet directly in this space, we have a little bit of a gap right here. And so we're just going to add the double crochet into that very last stitch instead of in the same point where all of the others are coming from. Now we just simply need to join with a slip stitch into that chain space. And there, that finishes off the round. We don't have a gap there and our corner still looks complete.